Skyrim Legendary difficulty is like throwing paper towels at a truck. After you throw enough, it will break, but you'll need to throw a literal ton of them before anything happens. However, when enemies hit the player, they make sure to not just hit them with a paper towel, but instead with a nuclear bomb. So in normal terms, the player deals negative 400% damage, and they take 300% more damage. Throw in survival mode, which adds in the extra need to sleep, eat, and make sure that you don't turn yourself into a fish finger whenever you enter the snow, no fast travel, and it halves your carry weight. You may be thinking, this sounds quite challenging, and as someone that spent 50 days playing Skyrim Legendary Survival, I can confirm it is very challenging. Day 1 of my journey started as a prisoner. I made my character a Nord and called him Jorn. However, Jorn was destined for the chopping block. As luck had it, I was saved by Alduin. I escaped the chaos into Helgen Keep with Ralof, tested out my weapons, and got a taste of legendary difficulty. Further into Helgen, I spot a Stormcloak buddy using a greatsword. I needed that greatsword. You know, I'm a burly Nord. One-handed weapons just aren't gonna cut it. So let's say I obtained the weapon from them, in the only way that I knew possible. I lit up some Imperials, got spooked in a spider den, and activated survival mode upon escaping Helgen. Now the true game began. The survival clock started. I would start to get hungry and tired. I needed to move fast. I chose the warrior stone, and upon reaching Riverwood, the first thing I did was learn my way around smithing. Nords have a natural talent for smithing, and I was going to need all of the upgrades that I could get my hands on. I then spoke to Gerda, did some business around town, and got some much needed rest at the inn. On day 2, I left Riverwood as I had no time to sit and relax. I needed supplies and fast. I made my way to Embershard Mine and eliminated the bandits outside. As there was no one around, I resurrected the bandit to serve me in battle. With the help of my bandit thrall, the enemies inside went down with relative ease. I made sure to mine all the iron and utilized the rock trap to eliminate more bandits. My thrall blocked me in a room. I took out the last bandit and grabbed some much needed food and valuables. Oh yeah, I'm limiting myself to only being able to eat meat. If Jorn wanted to stay a burly Nord, he would need a lot of protein. I made my way back to Riverwood, spoke to Feyendel, stitched up Sven's relationship with Camilla.
If that oaf thinks all I'm going to do is stay in that
and grabs Feyendel's keys to his house. This secured a place to stay, stored my loot and cooked some food. Things were going well. I utilised the iron and pelts to level my smithing, gave the town drunk a drink and left for Bleak Falls Barrow. I fought a mud crab and some banditos. Some skeevers were nesting inside and also a giant spider. I used the narrow entry into the spider den to outrange the spider, retrieved the golden claw, resurrected some help, utilised the traps and fought my way through to the sanctum. Used the golden claw and tried to drag a Draugr to the boss room so I could resurrect him to help me in the fight. Man, those Draugr were heavy. No matter what I did, I just couldn't drag them up the stairs. I learnt the dragon shout and died to the dungeon's boss. Not once, but 3 times. I utilised the chest as a pathfinder up, executed the Draugr, grabbed the dragon stone, discovered a standing stone, flawless emerald, hunted a rabbit, and ended day 2 by rubbing bread on Feyendel's face. Day 3 began with some business around Riverwood, and then the journey to Whiterun. I saved a Stormcloak brother, however, he ran away with my sword. Hey mate, I was letting you borrow that, not keep it. I met the companions, persuaded the guard to let me into Whiterun, and found a 2-handed enchanted gauntlet for sale. There are a lot of quests in Whiterun, some big, such as the Redguard quest, some small like delivering a mammoth tusk. However, I decided to pick them all up whilst I was here. I spoke to Jarl Bullscruff, asserted my dominance on a guard, gave the Dragonstone to Farfinger, learnt of a dragon attack nearby, spoke to the city's drunk, delivered Farfinger's frost salts to Arcadia, took her supplies, stole a mammoth tusk for Ysolda, told Mikhail to stop hitting on the ladies, gave the town drunk his special drink. In return, he gave me a vigorous health potion. I met everyone's favourite Whiterun citizen.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Huh?
Got a quest from Amron to receive his family sword, gave Ysolda my mammoth tusk, and got another quest to find a Redguard woman. I got starstruck by a strong Nord woman in the inn. Found the Redguard woman, she showed me hers, so I showed her mine. Spoke to the Alikir prisoner and paid his fine to receive some information. That was a lot of quests, but in survival mode there is no fast travel, so utilising what you have in your immediate area is always a good option. After all of that, I was getting tired, so I went back to Riverwood, gave Lucian the golden claw and ended day 3. I put some perk points into enchanting and 2-handed and started day 4 by venturing through the Whiterun plains. First quest I tackled was retrieving Amron's family sword. I had a close encounter with a bandit mage, however the town drunk's health potion came in clutch. I entered the bandit hideout, mined all of the iron, and snuck into the final room where I died. It's not dying that sucked, it was the fact that I had to mine all of the iron ore again. I ran to the chest, grabbed Amron's sword and left with the bandits in my dust. On my journey back to Whiterun, I fought some Thalmor, may have died, and delivered Amron's sword. I went back into Whiterun Plains to continue the Red Guard Woman quest, stole from a giant chest, fought some wildlife and arrived at Swindler's Den. The bandit outside did a cartwheel, I fought some bandits inside, resurrected them and died, more times than I was okay with. I needed to upgrade my equipment and ASAP. I was still capable of completing quests, but with my level increasing, so would my enemies. The clock was running and I was falling behind. I found a cheeky shortcut which led me to the Alakir warriors. I spoke with Kamatu and told him of the Red Guard Woman in Whiterun. I made my way back to Whiterun, discovered an unminable ore, smashed some bandits' heads in, got instant karma, and lied to the Red Guard Woman. I lured her right into Kamatu's trap. She tumbled over like a domino, and I got paid for a job well done. I utilised the latter end of day 4 to continue the main quest at the Western Watchtower. My first dragon fight. I had no ranged weapons, so all I could do was wait for the dragon to land, and when it did, I made sure to make every second count. With the help of Whiterun's guards and Irilith, we took out the dragon. I absorbed its soul, shouted at Irilith, and then learnt that I was Dragonborn. I got introduced to the Greybeards on my way back to Jarl Bullscruff, and slept in the battered mare for the night. I spoke with Bullscruff first thing on day 5, and got rewarded with the Axe of Whiterun, met my pack mule, and entered Jorvaskja to speak with Codlac Whitemane of the Companions. I smacked Vilkas, delivered his sword, got scolded for being a delivery boy,
if you were some stuffy merchant or a Jarl's footstool,
and then proceeded to make another delivery. Farkas showed me around and gave me a job to teach some locals a lesson. I had a brawl with the stableman, and got another disgusting taste of legendary difficulties damage nerf. Through constant dodging, going back and forth, I won the duel. I was in a brawling mood, so I headed to the Bannered Mare Inn to brawl with another local, this time for fun. I placed a bowl over the innocent-minded and got to work. After 6 minutes of straight back and forth fisting, I won the fight and won a follower. You see, I didn't gain Uthgerd as a follower for her skill in battle, not even for her to carry my loot. I had Lydia for that, no. I gained her as a follower because I want her armor. I lured her to a secluded location and took care of business. However, she showed me not to mess with the Unbroken. I ignored her advice and utilized some paralysis poisons, and now I have myself some armor fit for a true Nord warrior. The guards at Whiterun somehow heard of my dirty deed and attacked me. I ran for Riverwood and spotted a man coming towards me. It was a courier. Okay, what letter has he given me today? Uthgerd's death notice with a hefty 300 gold inheritance from Jarl Bullscruff himself. Well, now I'm awfully confused. I arrived back in Riverwood, dodging guards and sneaking into Fayendel's house. They saw me. I ran inside, stored my loot and... well, I tried again and escaped with a sliver of my health left. I set off for Falkreath as a fugitive of Whiterun Hold. It didn't take long for me to start committing crimes in Falkreath either. I arrived in Falkreath and enchanted the armor, which I scavenged from Uthgerd's corpse. Two-handed weapon enchantments on anything that could have it. After having a midday rest in the inn, I spoke to Thadgeir. He wanted me to deliver an item to the priest in town. Easiest money I've ever made. I crafted a dwarven greatsword and sharpened it. Quite a healthy upgrade. I spent the rest of day 5 exploring Falkreath in search for treasure and adventure. I entered some tombs, found Meridia's
A new hand touches the beacon.
and went back to Falkreath to sell off my plunder. I continued my adventures, which led me to Spriggan Dens and an orc camp. I was tired, so I made my way back to Falkreath. However, a group of hired thugs were waiting at the gate, 3 heavily armed and armoured bounty hunters after my head, and they got it. A few times. I managed to split the group up and take them out one by one. Let's see who put the bounty out on me. Gerda? Really? And then if things couldn't get any worse, a dragon swooped in and attacked Falkreath. Luckily, the dragon was distracted on the guards, and I attacked from its flank and finally took it down. After all of that, I deserved some much needed rest. I started day 6 with preparation and further adventures through Falkreath Hold. Time had passed. I was hoping so too would the guards' memory of my crimes. I arrived back in Riverwood and organised my belongings, levelled smithing some more, bought some grand soul gems from the Khajiit caravan, told the Whiterun guards I was a Thane, and finally handed in the quest to Farkas. I awoke on day 7, focused on continuing the companion quests. I traversed through the plains around Whiterun and reached the dungeon. I took out some Draugr inside, and soon after I was was trapped. I learnt of the companion's well-kept secret, grabbed a new silver sword, which is especially effective against undead enemies. I continued through the dungeon fighting Draugr, Silverhand, and Frostbite spiders, until I reached the final room, where I retrieved a fragment of Wuthrad, a piece of an ancient Nord weapon, and held firm with Farkas in the final room. After eliminating all of the Draugr, more would come crawling from their tombs. The fight was long, but our resolve was stronger. I went back to Whiterun with Wuthrad's fragment in hand, and also our new silver sword. I went to upgrade it when I realized you can't. One quick mod install later and, okay, that's better. I got welcomed into the companions, grabbed another job, and went back to Riverwood to rest for the night. It was clear to me that the dragons were a threat, and I was the only one that could stop them. I needed to speak to the Greybeards. My destination was High Hrothgar, but first I needed to arrive in Ivarstead at the base of the 7,000 steps. I made a stop at an ancient tomb, where I helped Goldir rid a necromancer pilfering and defiling his family's tomb. He didn't seem to mind that I was a necromancer though. A dragon held me up along the way. Also, I fought a very challenging fight against some mages inside a fort. However, the dragon never engaged. Instead, he stayed high in the sky, scouting his prey. I mined some ores at Darkwater Crossing, where I also slept for the night. I set off early on day 9 up Skyrim's mountains. The pilgrimage up the 7,000 steps would be long, so I had a rest before embarking on the trail. I witnessed some Todd logic, grabbed Klimik's supplies, and traversed up the mountain, avoiding all the enemies along the way. I placed Klimik's supplies, shouted at some old men, learnt how to run faster than Sonic, and got a test from the Greybeards to retrieve the horn of Jurgen Windcaller. I set off from High Hrothgar towards my quest. At the base of the hill was an Imperial camp. I got a quest from Froki to hunt down some spectral animals and got roasted by a kid.
I'm 11 years old and I could take you.
I found a dragon site, learnt a new word of power, and lured the dragon into the Imperial's camp. I came as close to death as dragonbornly possible, and with the help of the Imperials, I took out the dragon and got awarded with the dragon's soul. I spoke to Klimik back in Ivarstead to receive my pay, and got jumped by some cultists. Luckily for me, the Ivarstead guards helped me take them out. Cultists sent after me for being dragonborn. Someone or something didn't like my existence. I made my way to Riften, found a nerdroot farm along the way, and arrived in the most corrupt city in Skyrim. I unset the Jarl's table and spoke to the priest at the Temple of Mara. You see, I needed magic resistance, as I was horribly underpowered against magical attacks, and this quest would award me with plus 15% magic resistance. I got myself a quest for ingredients as well, bought a mighty steed, and rode to Ivarstead to proceed Mara's quest. Fastrid, a lady in Ivarstead, fancied 2 men in town, Bassianus and Klimik. I had to help her choose. Klimik was my bro. I couldn't betray him, so I went to talk to him. He was doing whatever he was doing with this corpse, and I gave him the courage to man up and tell Fastrid how he really feels.
But I thought you only cared about your fishing.
What good are fish if you have to eat them alone?
I attempted the tomb in Ivarstead, strong emphasis on attempted, and arrived back in Riften to get the next part of the quest. Day 11 was spent travelling and sleeping, and on day 12 I ventured for the Lordstone, which would give me 25% magic resistance and also 50 physical resistance. I fought some saber cats, forsworn, a mudcrab guardian spirit, vampires, and the cold weather, which seriously nearly got me, but luckily I found a mine where I took shelter and warmed up. I continued traversing through the freezing terrain until finally reaching the Lordstone. Day 13 started with some ingredient harvesting near Morthal, and a dragon fight outside the Gates of Solitude. I tried to hire a carriage and escape, but yeah, the dragon wasn't gonna let me go that easily. So I escaped the fight at Dragonbridge and had a rest at the inn. I made my way to Markarth with the darkness of night surrounding me. The journey there had some minor encounters, but nothing that I couldn't handle. What's the first thing that you do when you enter a new city? Well, you save someone from getting murdered, of course. What a grand introduction to the mountainous city of Markarth. I woke from the inn and received a job to deliver some spiced beef to Markarth's keep. More easy gold in my pocket. Then I did what I came here for, spoke to Calcimo, and encouraged him to speak with Feline. I bought a poem, handed it to Feline, and said it was from Calcimo. Calcimo and Feline lived happily ever after.
I love you.
My final task was to reunite some long-dead lovers back together, so I took the carriage to Whiterun. And on day 16, I embarked on the quest. I watched as a dragon scoured Whiterun Hold, and then I eliminated said dragon with the help of a giant. I spoke to Ruki, and then spoke to Fenrig, and reunited them so they may be together forever, even in death. I arrived back in Riften with Mara's quest now complete. Now with the Lordstone and Mara's blessing combined, I had a 40% total magic resistance, plus a 50% frost resistance from my Nord blood. I went to the the inn, retrieved a job to deliver some cheap mead.
No, friend. You got it all wrong. I'm not selling cheap meat. I'm selling good meat for cheap.
I then spoke to Louis Latruche, then Sibby Blackbriar, which started the quest to retrieve Frost, a special horse. I arrived at the Blackbriar Lodge where the horse was held, eliminated the mercenaries who were guarding the outdoors, snuck in to retrieve Frost's identity papers and some gold also. I then rode Frost to Louis Latruche, who I, let's say, persuaded to let me keep Frost. I then rode to an orc camp where I helped them defend from a giant attack, and ended day 17 in Iverstead, where I delivered the good mead for cheap prices. I arrived in Whiterun by carriage on day 18 and spoke to the steward. There was a house for sale, 5,000 gold. After all of the adventuring, I had amassed enough wealth to purchase the property. I agreed to the price. This would have to do, but still one problem. My loot was stuffed away at Faendal's house, so I left for Riverwood to retrieve my valuables. I grabbed my supplies and Nazim, what are you doing in my house?
Here we go.
Come on guys, he was breaking and entering, it was self-defense. I began day 19, before sunrise, and rode towards my quest. With Lydia by my side, the quest went smoothly. She acted as my shield and as my sword. Jovar was free from the clutches of the bandit group. I escorted him back to Whiterun and spoke to Skewer. He had something for me, but it wasn't a quest. Instead, it was a gift. You see, he was offering me a chance to become a werewolf. One blood teleportation splatter later, and I'm now a werewolf. I woke in a forest to the east of Whiterun. Aiello tracked down a group of Silverhand nearby our position. Skewer was already inside the Silverhand fort, so Aiello and I pushed through and tried to catch up. We entered the final room where the Silverhand boss was waiting. What we thought was a decisive victory turned out to be a sad moment. Skewer was dead. Someone had to pay. I prepared myself for what was to come. I leveled my smithing as much as I could, brewed some potions, upgraded my weapons and armor also. I prepared some ingredients and set off for Riften first thing on day 20. The ingredients were for Ingun Blackbriar, 500 gold for each turn-in. On day 21 I explored the southern borders of the rift, encountering a dragon which I slayed with the help of some Riften guards. I then arrived at a dragon resting place and also, well, I did end up killing the dragon. I arrived outside a Nordic tomb where I spoke to a high elf Stormcloak, or this is how he was dressed anyway. You see, I had my suspicions, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt and followed the quest inside. This dungeon was large, and I mean large. It took me around an hour to complete the dungeon. This is a perfect moment for a montage. Shit. What the are you doing? I faced a dragon priest who was a force to be reckoned with. After many swings and running away healing, I took out the dragon priest with the help of some cheese, learnt a new shout and discovered the true identity of Captain Valmir. Day 22 began in Riften. I completed the quest which I set out to complete in the rift and took a carriage back to Whiterun. Day 23, I put a bucket on this lady's head, leveled smithing and enchanting, handed in my quest to the companions and took a carriage to Solitude where I tussled with another dragon. I wanted to make some more progress with the main quest, as ultimately my goal was to complete the companions quest line and the main story. This was a tall order. I was already halfway through the 50 days and had not come close to completing either of the quest lines. I made my way to Ustengrav, fought some mages and Draugr, fought some spiders, and entered the room where the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller was meant to be, but in its place was a note. It told me to rent the attic room in Riverwood. On my way to Riverwood, I stop at Morthal, where I learn of a house fire, which the cause was still unknown. Upon investigating the house, I spot a ghost child who wanted to play hide and seek. She also wanted Leolette to go away.
Make Leylette go away.
Oh, I made Leolette go away. I spoke to Thonir, broke into Alva's house, tried to save Rogar, and learnt the truth. Alva, a Morthal resident, was a vampire. I inform the Jarl and she instructs me to hunt down the undead monstrosities. So I do just that. However, if you've been paying attention so far in this video, then you would have realized that dying on Skyrim Legendary difficulty happens a lot, and this quest was no exception. After far too many deaths, I whirlwind sprint into the Master Vampire's face and take him out. I find Alva further in the cave and dispose of her also. With the vampires slain, I return to Morthal and give the good news to Jarl Idgrod Ravencrow. Crone. Well, I can understand the Crone part of her name. On day 25, I make the journey east through the mountain caverns, into a dragon fight, to an orc who wanted a good death. I was not the one to grant him this death. And finally back to Whiterun, where I hand in the quest to Aella. Codlak Whitemane shares with me his desire to cure his werewolf spirit. Day 26 consisted of travelling to Riften. I arrived in the Rift and went to an orc camp I discovered earlier. The orc shaman wanted a Daedra heart and some troll fat, so she could begin a ritual to release the curse from her tribe. I handed her the items and listened to the greatest roast in all of Skyrim.
You pathetic weakling!
This is all your fault, you know.
The chief was a weakling, as he wanted me to help him slay the giant. Did he not listen to the roast at all?
You're weak, you're small, and you're an embarrassment.
We travelled through Riften, through a large open cave, and reached the shrine of Malakath. He wanted me to kill the giant. I felt sorry for him, so I accepted. Well, apparently he wanted in on the fight anyway, and after slaying the giant, I was betrayed. How could he do this? Why would he do this?
Yamars was a fool.
Well, makes sense. I told the orc tribe the truth about their previous leader and placed the warhammer on their shrine. I was awarded with a very large warhammer. Not my style, but I'll still take it. I rode through the reach, up a snowy hill and down into Riverwood. I stopped in at the inn and Lydia showed me what would happen if I got on her bad side. Okay, noted. I rented the attic room, spoke to Delphine, and she unrealistically got changed in milliseconds. I mean, come on, we all know that girls take at least an hour to get ready. I rode off towards the Glen Moral Witch Den. I needed one of their heads to cure Codlak of his werewolfism, if that is what you say, I don't know. I slayed the witch in her cave and grabbed one of their heads. I made sure to place it in its own little bag. It stunk. I was riding back to Whiterun, excited to gift Codlak with the one thing that he always wanted, the one way to Sovngarde. Outside Jorvaskr was some companions, standing over dead Silverhand. This couldn't be good. I ran inside Jorvaskr to see Codlak. He was dead. If only I was there. I could have saved him. He died without a cure. His last wish was never to be granted. I arrived in Dawnstar, and after a sleep at the inn, I set off for revenge. Someone was going to pay. I arrived at the Silverhand base. I made sure to make their deaths as slow as possible. Well, that got dark. Grabbed Wuthrad fragments and ran back to Whiterun with my wolf blood still boiling. I reached Whiterun just in time for Codlak's funeral. I didn't know him long, but he was a good man. All he did was honour him and his fellow companions. A true warrior. A true Nord warrior. I grabbed the final fragment from Codlak's desk, gave them all to Uriland, and spoke with the members of the circle. Uriland did it. He brought Wuthrad together. We had a plan to head towards Ysgramor's tomb, where we had a chance to actually grant Codlak his final wish. I felt like I was forgetting something, however, or someone. Wait, where's Lydia? I rode to Falkreath with full haste. My only hope was to follow my footsteps and maybe find Lydia. The last place I saw her was in the Glenmoral Witch Cave. I entered the cave, but no sign of Lydia anywhere. I don't know if I could handle losing my pack mule. I continued my quest to cure Codlak. I took a carriage to Winterhold and set off with Ysgramor's tomb as my goal. I entered the tomb, placed Ysgramor's axe to open the doors, fought some ghosts, spiders, and died an obscene amount of times. I got angry. I don't usually get angry at games, but when I do, it sounds like this. No! 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 My blood continued to boil, my frustration was immeasurable, and my day was ruined. Bro. I finally arrived at Codlak and freed him of his beast spirit and became the leader of the companions. My first goal was complete, finishing the companions. Now I wanted to complete the main quest and some other odds and ends along the way. I ran through the icy region, got nibbled on by a dragon, started to get extremely cold. I had skeletons shooting me, a dragon chasing me, and the weather turning me into a fish finger. My chance of survival was slim. I continued through the snowy region to the backside of Windhelm. I failed to harness my inner Skyrim horse while climbing this mountain. Harness that inner freaking mountain horse. Come on. Come on. And finally, found some fire to defrost by. Oh, sweet fire. After taking a carriage to Whiterun and having some much needed sleep, I recruited Vilkas, and then a miracle happened.
I trust you're not planning any trouble. What can I do for you, friend?
Lydia.
I am your sword and your shield.
I wanted to join the College of Winterhold, not to complete the quest line, not yet anyway, but to buy some soul gems, and more importantly, new spells. I blew Feralda's mind, got the tour of the college, took my first class, and bought some soul gems and spell tomes. I don't know why, but I spent day 34 completing the first College of Winterhold quest in Sarthal. I would soon regret this, and realise that time was running out if I wanted to complete the main story. I arrived in Sarthal, blew open a thing, met some time-stopping wizards, utilising my new spells, and I entered the room which housed the giant magic orb. Tolfdir attacked the orb, which gave me an opening to damage the Draugr boss inside. I went back to the college to deliver the news of this orb, paralysed a frost troll, told Savos Aaron about Sarthal's secrets, dodged past the Thalmor nerd, gave this student a lesson on wards. Because Winterhold is a shithole, it didn't have a carriage, so I left for Windhelm. I discovered a burrow along the way. Inside were some glowy jumpy boys. They followed me to the final room, which didn't house a dragon shout to my disappointment, but it did house a cool helmet. Not really my style though. I made it to Windhelm, realised that my quest was right nearby, so I arrived at Kynesgrove and watched as Alduin summoned a dragon. The dragon was on the lower end of difficulty when it comes to dragons. It did help to have Delphine fighting with me though. Delphine told me about her conspiracies on the Thalmor, and I made my way back to Whiterun, and Lydia was just continuing to be Lydia. I leveled some more enchanting on day 35, did some more smithing, and Farfinger was testing out his new floating spell. I arrived in Riften on day 36, done some business around Riften. I smithed my gear to legendary back in Whiterun on day 37, bought a new steed as Frost had gone missing, and rode into Riverwood, where I spoke to Delphine in a spooky murder dungeon. I went to Solitude, gave Malborn all of my equipment, and got scolded for walking around naked.
You got no clothes.
Welcome to the Wink.
Those people just can't appreciate true beauty when they see it. And then I took the carriage to the Thalmor embassy. Elenwen was a as usual. Malborn was blind.
Run out of the Alto wine. Do I have your permission to uncork the...
This Thalmor soldier was not having any of it, and then Razalin said what we were all thinking.
Elenwen, our mistress. I speak figuratively, of course. Nothing could be more unlikely than that someone would actually want her in their bed.
I snuck out from the party, retrieved my gear, and got revenge on the snobby Thalmor soldiers. Rulon Dilly got a head smacking of his life. I learnt of Esborn, saved Malborn again, and went back to Delphine to tell her the party wasn't all that great. On day 39, I arrived in Riften in search for Esbern. The innkeeper told me to head into the Ratway, so I did just that. I utilised my paralysis poisons on the Ratway folk. Vekel swindled me for some coin for information, and then I met Esberny. Oh, and I also made sure to murder the Imperial hiding in the Ratway. Esbern and I fought our way out the Ratway, and got spooked in Riften by a Thalmor spy. Esbern and I arrived in Delphine's basement. I smacked some sense into him and went to Markarth by carriage. I made sure to get a good night's sleep at the inn, and then took on the tough battle with Forsworn and some dragons. The dragon crash landed. The gang and I swarmed the wounded dragon. Inside, I lowered a bridge and cut myself, because I needed to distract myself from Esbern's slow ass. Esbern rabbled on about some dragon cult, and on day 42 was pretty much travel time, and day 43 began with a journey up to the Greybeards. The old men taught me how to shout better, and also how real men party. I learnt the Clear Skies shout and made my way up to Party Snacks. Party Snacks had snacks this time, in form of a stream of fire. He showed me his, so following tradition, I showed him mine. I now had a quest to retrieve the name of the game. I rode back to Whiterun, took a carriage to Winterhold, spoke to Urag Groshub on day 44, played roly-poly with this wine, and learnt of Septimus Sigma, who was hiding in the frozen wasteland of northern Skyrim. I arrived at Yoda's hut, and learnt the ways of the name of the game. The journey towards the Elder Scroll was grueling and slow. Pair this with growing frost damage, and you have yourself a tough time. I managed to reach the dungeon with a fraction of my health left. I ran past all of the enemies inside. Mind you, I was going 40% slower due to being a frozen watermelon. What you are about to see may cause you terrible trauma, as it did me. You see, I was initially unaware of my situation. I thought that I'd be fine just running past the enemies as I usually am, but I usually don't have barely any health and half my movement speed. You see, I died a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. But you know what? I never gave up. I've made it this far, so I'll be damned if I was going to give up now. But then I remembered I had paralysis poisons. This was the play. This was exactly what I needed to do. It was working. I was doing it. My patience paid off. I ran past the Centurion and made it. I actually made it into Blackreach. These 2 deaths here were nothing compared to what I had just endured. I followed the river and reached the room which held the name of the game. I solved the puzzle and grabbed the Elder Scroll. On day 46, I defrosted myself and ventured up to High Hrothgar, and then to the Throat of the World where I read the Elder Scroll, learnt the Dragon Wren shout, and faced Arduin back in my reality. The Arduin fight was difficult, dodging his fireball turds, raining from the clouds, and getting one-shot by his attacks. I used Vilcus as a meat shield and attacked Arduin from the side. Arduin was defeated, but not dead. He retreated and left to regain his strength in Sovngarde. I rode to Whiterun where I laid rest and then spoke to Jarl Bolin on day 46. I needed to trap a dragon on his porch, not just any dragon, but Arduin's main man. Balgruuf wanted a peace treaty with the war, so I spoke to the Greybeards and asked them to hold the peace treaty. They agreed to the terms, but I still needed Ulfric and Tullius to attend the meeting. I first rode to Windhelm and convinced Ulfric to attend the peace treaty, then to Solitude where I did the same with General Tullius. On day 48, the meeting was planned, however I could not find my horse anywhere. Well, you know, I'm sure the guards wouldn't mind me borrowing one. This is important business after all. So I did just that, and rode a horse to High Hrothgar. Sat everyone down at the meeting, except the Thalmor. I told them to bugger off. I gave Ulfric Markarth with a trade of Winterhold to the Imperials. Finally, some revenge for what happened in Helgen. Synchronized arm cross.
Don't hand me a mug of sheep's piss.
With the peace treaty settled, I made my way to Dragon's Reach. I made sure to rest in Whiterun before trapping the dragon, as I would not be returning until Arduin was defeated. It was early in the day, so I had exactly 1 day to complete the final quest. I went out onto Dragon Reach's porch, Fusro Dard the Whiterun guard. I wanted to experiment, see if Odahviing would still grab him even if he was inside. Well, yeah, he does. Because I'm me, I decided to retry. Maybe it was just a glitch. Nope, definitely not a glitch. I hit Odahviing with Dragon Wren and lured him into the trap. I then released Odahviing as he agreed to take me to Skuldufn, and indeed he did. I attempted to fight the Draugr at Skuldufn's exterior, but I was not strong enough with 2 dragons also raining down fire turds on me. So I ran past the enemies and entered the tomb. I knew this wouldn't be easy, and I was right. With most enemies being Draugr scourges and all, I died a few times. I isolated each Draugr, taking them out one by one, making my way through, defeating more Draugr along the way, lowering a claw door, and exiting to the exterior once again. I also tried to defeat the Draugr here, even utilizing my storm shout, which summoned a lightning storm, striking my enemies. There was no hope, so I did what I always do on these challenge runs, ran past everyone and jumped straight into Sovngarde's portal. I shouted away Arduin's vape clouds, and now I had to face Sun, the guard of Sovngarde's mead hall. This fight was tough. At this point, I wasn't expecting anything else. However, with a cheesy strategy and perseverance, I proved myself worthy to cross the Dragon Bridge, spoke to Ysgramor inside, and got united with the warriors from the Elder Scroll Time Warp. After combining our shouts to eradicate Arduin's vape clouds permanently, we were at the final battle. Arduin swooped in, confident he would defeat us. After a tough battle, Jorn defeated Arduin and saved Skyrim from Arduin the World Eater. Sun sent me back to Skyrim, to the Throat of the World. Some dragons gave me a ceremony and I travelled to Whiterun for one last rest. The pressure was off my chest, Arduin was gone, and Skyrim could be free from his terror. I mean, nothing had changed. Nazim was still Nazim.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often?
You may be wondering, what did I do on day 50? Well, I spent day 50 as any true Nord would after a valiant victory, in my local mead hall, telling the stories and tales of my journey.